expectations are high heading into 2024 in Oxford, Mississippi, guys. I don't have to tell you that. Everybody knows that. Everyone was picking Ole Miss right after the Peach Bowl to kind of be after the Peach Bowl win against Penn State to kind of be their sleeper team in 2024. Well, I remember me and Brad Crawford from 247 Sports were talking about it. It's like they can't really be a sleeper team after about a month of preseason polls coming out for 2024. Everybody's picking them to be in the playoffs. So it's not a sleeper anymore. And I'm personally on board too. I'm on the Ole Miss bandwagon. I like Ole Miss a lot this year. I personally think Ole Miss is going to be one of the 4 to 5 SEC representatives in the first college football playoff. But with that being said, could the best Ole Miss football season of all time in 2024 lead to an apocalyptic December in Oxford? I'm your host, Dave Shumate, coming at you from the SEC Unfiltered channel. I'm a longtime college football personnel guy, worked 7 years in SEC recruiting departments. I feel like I'm pretty well versed in the college football world, also college baseball, college basketball as well. But before we get to this apocalyptic December in Oxford, we got to pay some bills first, guys. So if you're looking for tickets, it's Major League Baseball season. We're slowly getting into college football season. Go see our guys at SeatGeek, guys. Go to SeatGeek.com and use code SECU for $20 off your first purchase. I'm going to use SeatGeek to go buy seats to the Braves game on Saturday. Paul Skeens and the Pittsburgh Pirates are coming in. I'm going to get a phenomenal deal there. I think you should too. If you're going to a college football game this fall, you should use our buddies over there at SeatGeek. Again, use SECU for $20 off your first purchase. Now, as I previously mentioned, I'm on the Ole Miss bandwagon this year for a couple of reasons. The roster. It's as good as it's ever been, especially on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Really, the defensive line. I mean, probably the best defensive line depth-wise they've had maybe since 2008. Houston Nutt's first year, once Ed Orgeron's guys got older. Greg Hardy, Parade Jerry, 2 NFL draft picks with the Atlanta Falcons. I remember Parade Jerry and Greg Hardy. The Panthers or Cowboys, forget off the top of my head. But no, the roster's there, guys. And I always say it. I did a live show with Mock 10 Sports, my own company back in the fall. I'll be doing a live show on SECU once the season gets going. But I always say it. Remember, I'm a personnel guy at heart. It's not about your starting 22, guys. It's about your top 40, and Ole Miss has that now. I mean, just looking at the roster right now, let's look at it. I mean, on the line of scrimmages, Diego Pounds came over from North Carolina, Nate Kalepo, Washington, Julius Ballou coming over from Washington as well. They still got Micah Pettis, Caleb Warren, Reese McIntyre's a depth guy, Jeremy James, who started, I feel like, everywhere on the offensive line except center. He's fighting for a starting spot. They have depth now, man. They have depth. Jaden Williams is, I mean, dude, Jaden Williams, Aiden Williams, the receiver. But, dude, you got a lot of guys on the offensive line. You have depth. That's big. Remember, your top 40, guys, your top 40. Injuries happen. Your first 22 aren't going to win you a championship. The defensive line, Jared Ivey, Walter Nolan coming over from Texas A&M, J.J. Pegues, who I like, Princely Umaman from Florida. Chris Hardy's a depth guy. Xavier Harris, Akilo Stone, Chamberlain Campbell. Sorry, Ole Miss has depth, man. Give Lane Kiffin credit. Give Austin Thomas, who's now at LSU, credit, who was Ole Miss's GM. Alex Collins, who's the DPP. Give Ole Miss credit. I mean, give Pete Golden credit for bringing these guys in. Ole Miss has upgraded their roster in a significant way. They've done a phenomenal job. And then Walker Jones and the boys over there who run the Grove Collective. I mean, they've done a phenomenal. There's no denying that. Ole Miss has improved their roster like no other. They do have a top 40. You can make a case they maybe have a little bit more depth than even Alabama does on defense, which is crazy to say. So I like Ole Miss because obviously first the roster. And then you have the trio of all three of your coordinators back. Charlie Weiss Jr., the offensive coordinator spot. Pete Golden, second year as the DC. And then if you're keeping up with your special teams coordinator, Jake Schoonover's back. There's a lot of continuity on that staff. Then bring in the schedule. I mean, it's an SEC schedule, guys. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. It is what it is. But, I mean, outside, their toughest non-con games at Wake Forest. They go see Dave Clawson and the boys. Outside of that, though, I mean, Furman, Middle Tennessee State, and Georgia Southern, you don't have a lot after that. Then conference-wise, you host Kentucky, you host Oklahoma, you host Georgia, and you host Mississippi State on Black Friday. And then on the road, from a conference perspective, you go at South Carolina, which could be tough. And I think it's a little bit of a trap game because you do go at LSU the very next week. Tough to win true back-to-back road games in the SEC. It's tough. Not a lot of teams have done it since 2020. It's tough. It's really tough. True back-to-back week road games. That'll be interesting there. You don't want to be looking ahead to LSU. So I think that South Carolina game's a little I don't think they'll lose. It could just be closer. And then at Arkansas, where they've traditionally struggled at, they got embarrassed 2 years ago there. But I think Ole Miss is just better than Arkansas this year. Just like I think Ole Miss is better than LSU personnel-wise this year. I do. I just think they are. And then at Florida, which I'll talk about Florida here in a minute. What will Florida be doing then before you – it's tough to judge that game right now. I mean, it's November 23rd, the second to last game of the year. Will Billy Napier even be there? What are they playing for? Just a lot. Overall, Ole Miss's schedule is very manageable. So when you factor in the roster, the upgraded of talent in the top 40, you factor in the continuity at all three coordinator positions with Charlie Weiss Jr., Pete Golden at the defensive coordinator position, and then Jake Schoonover at the special team spot. And you factor in the manageable conference schedule, I think Ole Miss is one of the 4 to 5 representatives in the SEC in the 2024 college football playoff. And I'm not alone in that. That's not some bold statement. I'm about to give you a bold statement, though. So we're all good on that. Ole Miss is going to be good. We're all on the same page. And I think Ole Miss can be playing in late December, too. It's really not that far-fetched. But now comes the apocalyptic situation that could arise in Oxford. And no, I'm not talking about the snowstorm that happened this past January at the beginning of the new year that blanketed and iced over the city of Oxford and Lafayette County. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you could be hosting college football playoff games, hosting big-time recruits, portal prospects, and yes, you could even be entertaining coaching changes. And I'm not talking about it at the coordinator spots, guys. I'm talking about it at the head coaching spot in Oxford. So let's head down to Gainesville, Florida, where I think Billy Napier is squarely on the hot seat right now. I, like some, do not think Billy Napier is going to make it through the 2024 season. I think Florida's right on that 4 to 6 win kind of line in 2024 because I think Billy Napier's improved the roster. I just think the schedule's going to be too tough. I think it's going to be too tough to – I mean, that November stretch is just hellacious for them. And I have it on good authority that Lane Kiffin would walk to Gainesville for that job. I'm talking to someone that used to be close to him. And, I mean, Ole Miss fans aren't going to like this, but he's tried to leave you pretty much every year. He tried to get the Miami job, and Mario Cristobal got it. Was begging for Texas A&M to call him, but wasn't a good fit. They ended up obviously hiring Mike Elko. So Lane Kiffin wants to leave. Doesn't mean he doesn't like Oxford, doesn't like Ole Miss. Appreciate them giving him a chance from FAU. But he wants to go to greener pastures in the college football world, he thinks. But what if Ole Miss finishes the season 11-1, 10-2, gets a bye in the playoff, or in my apocalyptic situation, Ole Miss goes 10-2, host a playoff game while searching for a new coach while Lane Kiffin is breaking in his new office in Gainesville? Can you imagine Ole Miss making their first playoff appearance, hosting a playoff game, and having an interim head coach coach that game? Because that's what's going to happen. And I know some people are listening to this right now and be like, he's not going to coach it. No, he's not. Because let me tell you exactly why. Go look at the calendar of how the college football playoff sets up. First rounds, December 20th and 21st. Quarterfinals, December 31st and January 1st. Semifinals, January 9th and January 10th. And the championship game in Atlanta this year, January 20th. I mean, last time I checked, Ole Miss's last game of the regular season now is on Black Friday, November 29th against Mississippi State. Florida's last home game is on November 30th at Florida State at Doak Campbell Stadium. If you don't think Scott Strickland and them would want Lane Kiffin on their campus recruiting, hiring coaches the very first day of December, you're crazy. I don't think they're going to allow Lane Kiffin to coach that playoff game. I mean, let's say Ole Miss goes all the way to the national championship game. He's playing on January 20th. It wasn't, 19th. Let's see that. Let's just say that happens. What? That's just a weird situation, man. They're going to have an interim head coach. He's not going to coach that bowl game, man. He's not. It's going to be Pete. My guess would be Pete Golden would be hosting that playoff game. And let's say it's against Oregon, USC, which I don't think it's going to be USC, but Notre Dame's real. Notre Dame's real in that independent perspective. I think Notre Dame's schedule could put them in the playoffs. I see them in the playoffs with Marcus Freeman. Notre Dame could be playing a playoff game in Oxford, Mississippi, which would be nuts in itself. Can you imagine the Grove, Vaught Hemingway Stadium, the Square, just the city of Oxford hosting a playoff game? That would be wild, be a phenomenal scene. The pageantry would be awesome, but maybe without Lane Kiffin. It would be if Billy Napier's fired and they end up hiring Lane Kiffin, because I don't think Lane Kiffin's going to push it. Hey, I want to stay in Oxford. Let's see how far we go. Then I'll make it over to Gainesville. Because that could be a month and a half later. You're missing out on portal prospects, high school prospects, and the best coaches available to go make your staff the best coaching staff in the country, which Florida would expect. That's wild, guys. That's wild, and I think that's exactly what would happen. And we're not that far off from that potentially happening, because I think Ole Miss is 10-2, 11-1 this year. I think Billy Napier is going to be 5-7 most likely and going to get fired. I think they're going to give Lane Kiffin a call. I think he's going to go to his agency at CAA, Jimmy Sexton. It's Jimmy Sexton. The world was just living in it. And he's going to really push for that job because he's done it every offseason, and he loves the state of Florida. He wants to get back there now. He owns a house down there. He would definitely take the Florida job. I would even venture to say he would walk from Oxford to Gainesville for that job. So Ole Miss, it's very real that you could be 10-2, 11-1, hosting a playoff game, and Pete Golden is almost interviewing for that job with a national championship on the line. He goes win a game or two, it's probably his job in Oxford. If he goes and loses in embarrassing fashion, Keith Carter may have to go put some lines out and see what's going on. Pull that short list out he had a couple years ago when Lane Kiffin almost went to Auburn. Just telling you guys that's not that far off. But with the offseason, it made me think it. And I'm calling some people in the industry. I'm like, he would leave. And they're like, you're right. He would. He would leave to go to Florida, and he wouldn't coach in that bowl game. There's no way he would, or he wouldn't coach in that playoff game. I need to stop saying bowl game. He wouldn't coach in the playoff game. He wouldn't. He'd be going to work for his new employer at the University of Florida. It is what it is. So it could be a wild scene this fall, and specifically in this upcoming December of 2024 in Oxford, Mississippi, guys. So just wanted to spell that out. It could be a potential apocalyptic December in Oxford, and I'm not talking about snow or ice, guys. I'm talking about Lane Kiffin being the new man in Gainesville. Keith Carter, you better have your short list out, guys. But again, I'm your host, Dave Shumate, former personnel guy in the SEC, in college football. I'm your host here from the SEC Unfiltered channel. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, guys. It's all things SEC 365 days of the year. I hope you have a phenomenal day.